Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a massive challenge that so many engineering teams are facing right now, migrating from Azure DevOps to GitHub Actions. Think of this whole process kind of like moving into a new house. It's a daunting, exhausting task. You've got years of accumulated stuff boxed up in the attic, which in our world translates to legacy code, outdated pipelines, and hidden technical debt that honestly feels a lot like finding a box of tangled, dusty cables from 2008. You know you need to leave the old house behind to get to that shiny, modern CI/CD future, but man, the sheer volume of the move just feels completely paralyzing. To really wrap our heads around the scale of this challenge, let's look at the number 2000. In a recent case study from the engineering team over at Lean Techniques, this was exactly the number of Azure DevOps repositories they were staring down. 2,000. We're talking about a wild mix of .NET, Java, Python, and Node spread across front-end, back-end, and batch processing. But, it wasn't just the sheer volume that was the problem. They were basically drowning in tech debt, with tens of thousands of secrets just dangerously exposed throughout their old ADO pipelines. So that begs the really critical question, right? How do you actually migrate 2,000 pipelines, or hey, even just 200 pipelines, without bringing your entire engineering department to a complete grinding halt? Manual copy-pasting? Yeah, that's completely off the table. It's just way too slow, way too error-prone, and let's face it, your developers still have daily feature work and business value to deliver. You absolutely cannot just freeze development for 6 months to sit around and rewrite YAML files.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our step-by-step playbook for today. We'll be looking at 1. The migration toolkit, 2. Audit before you move, 3. Automating the translation, 4. Securing your new workflows, and finally, 5. The modern CI/CD future.
All right, Section 1, the migration toolkit. Think of these as your magical weapons against tech debt. If we're leaving that painful manual copy-pasting behind, what exactly are we using instead? Well, we have 2 primary accelerants here. First up is the official GitHub Actions importer. This is a super powerful command line interface tool built specifically to automate the translation of your pipelines. And second, we've got GenI, specifically platforms like Code Cargo and tools like GitHub Copilot, which act as your intelligent assistants to help map out and rewrite all that complex custom logic. Look, when we compare the old, painful way of doing things with our new playbook, the contrast is just night and day. The manual migration approach is agonizingly slow. You're usually stuck dealing with these GUI-based Azure DevOps classic pipelines that really don't convert easily to YAML. And what happens? Your teams end up completely reinventing the wheel for every single repository. But on the flip side, the AI and importer method is fast. It uses automated CLI translations to parse those old pipelines and instantly restructure them into standardized, reusable workflows. So you aren't just moving code here, you're fundamentally upgrading your entire architecture. And this brilliantly illustrates what I mean. Think about something as simple as translating environment variable syntax for your operating system. Instead of forcing a human to manually rewrite it, the GitHub Actions importer actually has a built-in mapping library that automatically finds and translates dozens of these specific variables for you instantly. You don't have to hunt and peck through thousands of lines of code to fix syntax errors. The automated toolkit literally handles it for you. Moving on to Section 2, Audit Before You Move. Or, as I like to call it, don't pack your trash. You wouldn't move into a beautiful, brand new house and immediately fill the living room with broken appliances and old garbage, right? We need to identify existing pipeline patterns and explicitly drop any duplicate or obsolete technical debt before we make the move. So here's where the GitHub Actions importer audit command becomes your absolute best friend. By simply running a quick CLI command, this tool executes a massive sweep of your system. It fetches every single project defined in your ADO organization, it attempts to convert every pipeline to its GitHub Actions equivalent right there in memory, and then, this is the best part, it generates a highly detailed summary report. You get this perfect, high-level view of your entire organization's CI/CD footprint in just minutes. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the resulting audit report provides a total reality check. It drops every single pipeline into one of 4 exact buckets. Successful means exactly that. 100% of the constructs were automatically converted. Boom, done. Partially successful means the bulk of it was converted, but maybe a few individual items need a quick human tweak. Unsupported means the importer just can't handle that specific ADO definition type yet. And failed? Well, that usually points to a fatal error in the original ADO config or, just invalid credentials. But this breakdown essentially becomes your exact roadmap for planning out your developer's time. But hey, we need to set some realistic expectations here. Automation gets you incredibly far, but it's not magic.
The importer audit will explicitly call out specific manual tasks that require human intervention. For example, it cannot automatically migrate your organization or environment secrets. It won't migrate complex service connections like OIDC or your pre-deployment gates, and it can't map out custom self-hosted agents. So, you are still going to need your engineering team to properly architect those critical pieces in your new GitHub environment. All right, Section 3, automating the translation, which is really all about doing the heavy lifting. We've audited our environment, we know exactly what can be automated and what can't. Now it's time to actually execute this translation using our AI and CLI tools to rewrite those clunky legacy pipelines into clean, modular GitHub workflows. The Lean Techniques team actually shared a pretty brilliant anecdote about this phase. They used GitHub Copilot's issue templates to drastically accelerate their adoption. Basically, they built a request template where a developer could just input their repository name, their tech stack, like say Node or Python, and their deployment environments. They fed that directly into Copilot as a prompt, and the AI literally generated a pull request in the target repository with all the necessary GitHub Actions workflows already written. They estimated this AI-driven approach successfully covered around 80% of their use cases. That is a massive reduction in manual engineering effort.
And we can actually structure all this heavy lifting by following a methodology like the one outlined by Code Cargo. Step 1 is identifying your core patterns, how your organization builds, tests, and deploys. Step 2, you build a single reusable workflow for each of those patterns in GitHub, so you aren't just duplicating code everywhere. Step 3 is super fascinating. You create a custom migration AI agent that actually understands your specific organizational rules and ways of working. And finally, Step 4, you empower your developers to execute the migration through a self-service portal on their own timescale, which completely minimizes disruption to the business. But wait, before anyone flips the switch for real, there is one absolutely crucial command you have to run, the dry run. Running the dry run command tells the GitHub Actions importer to convert the pipeline and output the resulting YAML files locally. It does this without opening a pull request or ever touching your live repository. It is the ultimate safety net. Honestly, it's essentially the undo button before you actually do anything. It lets your engineers safely test the conversion, inspect the output, and build custom transformers for edge cases before making any permanent changes whatsoever. Which brings us to Section 4, securing your new workflows. We've got to fix the sins of the past. So, the crucial point here is that we absolutely cannot bring our old security messes with us. Remember those tens of thousands of exposed ADO secrets from the case study? Yeah, if we just blindly migrate everything, we're literally just moving our vulnerabilities from one platform to another. We have to use this migration as a forcing function to lock down and harden our security posture. To transform that vulnerable legacy system into a seriously hardened deployment pipeline, we need to rapid-fire implement some strict guardrails. First, you configure strict minimum GitHub token permissions per job. Next, you activate GitHub Advanced Security Secret Scanning. This blocks leaked tokens from ever slipping into your codebase again. We use GitHub environments to securely store our secrets. We swap out those risky, long-lived credentials for OpenID Connect to authenticate directly to cloud providers. And finally, we implement mandatory approval gates to ensure all our new workflows are strictly SOC 2 compliant. No exceptions.
And finally, Section 5, the modern CI/CD future. The motto here is simple. Build once, deploy many. When you combine that automated migration toolkit, a rigorous audit, AI-assisted translation, and those strict security guardrails we just talked about, you arrive at this beautifully standardized after state. Your developers are fully empowered with a scalable environment, they're running tests on every single PR, and they're pulling approved builds seamlessly across all environments.
Of course, to sustain this awesome new setup, you've got to manage your infrastructure intelligently. That's exactly where the importer's forecast command comes into play. It analyzes your historical ADO pipeline runs, looking closely at execution time, queue time, and concurrent jobs to predict exactly what your usage is going to look like in GitHub. This is huge. Execution time helps you predict your runner's billing costs. Queue time and concurrent jobs tell you exactly how many runners you need to configure to prevent bottlenecks. It literally takes all the guesswork out of your cloud budget.
So we've seen how organizations have successfully tackled thousands of repositories, ditching decades of tech debt by leveraging tools like the GitHub Actions importer and AI agents to do all that heavy lifting. The path to a secure, standardized, and blazing fast CI/CD pipeline is out there, and it is no longer blocked by endless manual copy-pasting. The reality is, your legacy Azure DevOps pipelines are holding you back. The tools are here, the playbook is proven, so I'll leave you with this. Are you ready to let AI build your future?